We are talking with Nadia Rinquest today from Cape Town. She is an economist, a developmental economist and policymaker who studied at Duke University in America and returned to South Africa to give back to her country with many other projects that she started. Nadia, thank you so much for being here. It's so great to see you.
Good afternoon, Rebecca, and thank you so much for having me today.
It's been a long time. Now, you were actually my educator on my summer camps that I went to.
That was a long time ago.
But the best summer camps ever. And I've learned so much from you. I'm so inspired by your story, having gone overseas to study economics, which is something I've also been very interested in.
Mm-hmm.
And then come back to South Africa. And I'm so just interested in your story about like why you even came back and just how it all happened. I know it was a while ago, but maybe could you just tell us what you're working on at the moment in Cape Town?
Yeah, so maybe I could just start a little bit back. So I used to work in the NGO space in organizational development. And I decided that I would like to further my career. And at that stage, I did a mid-career change from NGO work to a master's degree in international development policy at Duke University, where my majors were economics and policy analysis and statistics. And on completion of that master's degree, this degree affords opportunities to study or to work basically anywhere in the world. A lot of my student colleagues went on to work at the UN or the World Bank. However, I just felt really strongly about coming back to South Africa, especially in Cape Town, and giving back to the community and working where, in a space where I'm from. So that was my main aim coming back to South Africa. And when I got back, I was immediately employed by the City of Cape Town. And at the City of Cape Town, I worked in economic development. So a lot of projects to see that small businesses, entrepreneurs, youth have skills and resources to be able to support them and to grow their businesses. After about 3 years of doing that, I then transitioned to the provincial treasury, the Western Cape government, as an economist. And after 7 years of that, I became a director at the Western Cape government, and I managed a team of economists, and we were responsible for economic research that we used in local government to affect local budgets of municipalities and the responsiveness of their budgets to their socioeconomic reality. And then after about 9-10 years of that, I recently moved back to the City of Cape Town in a completely new role. So at the moment, I am the manager of city performance management, and I look at monitoring, reporting, evaluating, oversight of all the performance, as well as performance auditing within the City of Cape Town. So really seeing that the city delivers on its promises and sticks to its targets for service delivery. So that's currently what I'm busy doing in my career space, Rebecca.
How did you come to that idea of like economics? Because I don't remember having much exposure to economists. I know in some European countries, there is a big focus on that, and it's quite common, and they have a history of scholars that are famous for whatever. But in South Africa, I don't remember seeing any examples of that. But I always knew like it was something that interested me, like how society works. And it was more than sociology. I studied sociology, but I knew there was something more to it. It was more mathematical, but I just never met anyone studying economics like when I was in Stellenbosch. So where were you exposed to this idea, and how did you know this was something you wanted to study?
So I think when I went back to study my master's degree, I was first exposed to economics actually at the University of the Western Cape. And while I was there, it was never my intention to be an economist either. It kind of fell into my lap. However, when I was at the University of the Western Cape, I got a scholarship called the Ford Foundation Scholarship, which afforded me the opportunity to study anywhere in the world. And when I got accepted at Duke University, the course that I was studying was very strongly economic focused because it's about development, right? So international development, and you can't divorce the economy from development, like it goes together. And so that was basically where my main exposure to economics came from, was at Duke University. But I would say that the foundation was probably built at UWC. Where I started to understand, because my whole goal in life was just to make a difference. I didn't know that economics would be the route that takes you to the place where you can work in a rewarding space and make a difference. I just it linked together so well with my goals. And I remember when I was applying for this scholarship and for the degree, and when I got accepted, all the sort of motivational letters that I wrote at that time, it was like, what is your aim? And my aim was literally just to make a difference. And so following that vision of making a difference led me to economics. And economics has really been a foundation for me. And it is the foundation of everything, basically. If you look at income inequality, if you look at GDP per capita, or you look at how people's lives are, improved and the quality of life is improved, it's related to the economy and the financial situation. So whatever happens in the economy really has an effect on everybody's lives. And so that was where I found myself working, yeah.
And in the South African context, do you think like we have a shortage of economists? Or because I know we're very focused on entrepreneurship, but it's kind of, in my opinion, a bit immature. I've seen many of the startups, of the South African startups as well. And I just comparing it to the European or American startups, it is just a more immature market in general. But we had a huge push towards entrepreneurship, especially during when my generation was like post 1994, and it was at the Rainbow Nation as like creating the new South Africa. So there was a lot of push towards small business growth, and even now I think as well. But I always felt like there was something missing in that equation. Like you needed like a higher level thinking. And I mean, I just only did a few courses, but I really wanted to finish that. Like I would love to just study, more. But what kind of difference do you think it makes having the skills that you have now in South Africa, as opposed to if you had to have stayed in America?
Mm-hmm. So with regards to economics, and I'm listening to speak about the push into entrepreneurship. When there is a shortage or lack of jobs in the formal economy, in a national economy such as South Africa, you will find that it is entrepreneurs or it is the informal sector that buffers the economy during a time of a recession or a pandemic. You will see the rise in informality as people get retrenched or laid off or have to make a way to earn money. Entrepreneurs are usually the backbone of what grows the country's economy during those, stagnant growth periods. And so that is why South Africa is always pushing for entrepreneurs to start businesses and create jobs, because the unemployment level is just so high, and the formal economy is not able to absorb the amount of labor that is currently within the country, right? So in South Africa, you will only find economists in mostly within investment companies. You won't find a lot of development economists or applied economists. Mainly, the chief economists of Investec or Allen Gray or those kind of companies is where professionals with economic degrees aspire to and get hired into those type of jobs. When it comes to development economists, you are really looking at the socioeconomic data that's available on the ground and the trends that you are seeing within the socioeconomic data, such as population growth rates, demographics. You're looking at inequality, HDI, education, health. What else? Poverty levels, and trying to understand from that set of data, what is it that's within, in my space, for instance, the government's control? What levers does the government have at its disposal to influence the economy and to create an enabling environment for the economy to grow? So you will often hear incorrectly that government needs to create jobs, or government has created so many jobs within a society, which is technically not the job of government to create jobs. It's the market's job to create jobs, right? The private sector's job, right? But the government's role is to create an enabling environment. So to create laws or regulate or incentives or taxes that enable businesses to grow and the private sector to enable them to create jobs. So it's a very interesting field in that it's not very popular, I would say, but it's very important because it doesn't just look at one sector of the economy, the market, and what the market's doing, but it really looks at how each of the socioeconomic indicators that exist within a community, within a society, contributes to economic growth within that environment. Yeah.
If you look at like how far you've come in your journey, and like it's so impressive, like where you're at now. Did you ever think you would be in such a, I mean, you're in quite an influential position in South Africa, because I do think the government plays quite a big role because of our, the private sector isn't exactly the strongest. And so, yeah, do you think that maybe the government needs to push a little bit more to help entrepreneurs, or where are your touch points really, where you feel like you're having the most impact?
Yeah, so I think that the government's intention, because we are quite a developmental government, right? There aren't very many governments that, for instance, provide social grants in the form of cash, in the form of money to its citizens. I think South Africa might be the only one in the world. I haven't really heard of another one. I know people provide vouchers or through another system, but giving you because of the injustice of the past, we have a unique situation that we still have a whole section of society that needs to catch up, right, economically with the rest of the country. And I mean, you probably know that South Africa is the most unequal society in the whole world, right? Our inequality is the highest of any other country. So inequality is measured by a Gini coefficient, and the higher your Gini coefficient, the further your richest person is from your poorest person. So there's lots of rich and there's lots of poor, and the middle is not fully formed, if you could say. So the middle class is not big enough to carry the country and to help the country grow. So if you want to work towards inequality and reducing inequality, that is where I think we will have the biggest effect. So the poor need to, increase the income, and the gap needs to close for you to really see a change within society, and for you to really see economies grow, and for you to see economic growth within regions. The gap needs to shrink. And so when you look at where are the biggest needs within creating income, you will find it within the youth, unemployed youth, even youth with education, even youth with degrees, unemployed youth with degrees. You will find it within more so in the space of women, particularly women of color, compared to other cohorts of our demographics. So for me, if we could get women employed, or not employed, but give them the ability to earn an income, and we could give, the youth an ability to earn an income, then we would really see the country start to turn and the economy start to grow. Yeah.
Given our history, Nadia, do you think that it's more important for us to develop like from the inside out, so with our own people starting small businesses, or for large corporations to come in and employ people? Because that is also a form of like control in a way, which might have some negative connotations with our past. So what are you seeing would be the way forward?
So I think it'll be a bit of both, to be honest. I don't think you could do the one without the other, because you do want foreign direct investment into your country, because it speaks to business confidence, right? And it speaks to your regulatory environment where the foreign businesses are willing to invest within your country, number one. So you need those companies to bring in certain types of businesses so that you can grow skills within certain areas, and you can employ students that have studied in those skills. However, to really see the local economy thrive, you also need entrepreneurs and businesses to grow organically and internally within your country, because those are businesses that are directly involved in the local economy, and you will see the finances or the money flow within an area if, for instance, the government supports local businesses through procurement or whatever methods they have available. You will start to see the local economy change from the inside out without having the expectation of foreign investment only. Yeah.
And where do startups fit in that picture? Because I know it's very rare for startups in South Africa to get large funding, so but there are promising startups I've seen, and the ecosystem is growing. So where do you see startups and fast growth companies fitting in that?
So I've only seen startups succeed with real backing, venture capitalists or those that are investors that are really willing to invest in great ideas and innovation and tech. And so that's been my own experience of startups that I've really seen take off within Cape Town, is when they have growth to a certain point, and then venture capitalists or investors have come in and supported them to expand their business. So I don't know what other method of funding they have available to them. I'm not really experienced in that field, but from my experience, that's when I've seen it work really well.
So when you look at the data of all the various touch points you spoke about earlier, like health and education and everything, so where are your priorities? Like, how do you structure what you're going to focus on, and how do you work with those different societal role players?
So from a government's perspective, you obviously want to invest in your long-term well-being of your citizen, right? So your health and your education are going to be your biggest budget spends or your biggest priority within your government budget, number one. Number two, because the government is very politically influenced, there are going to be areas that are going to receive funding dependent on whatever the shock to the system is at that point in time. Given Cape Town in 2014 to 2017, we had a drought. And so you would have seen a lot of investment going into water infrastructure projects because you want to make your city resilient to external shocks. So for instance, if another drought should come up now, the city will be prepared for a drought. Last year and the year before too, for the past 2 years, because of the rolling blackouts and the load shedding that we've experienced within South Africa, you will see a lot of investment be channeled towards energy and alternative energy and energy generation projects that are not dependent on the main energy provider that we have in South Africa. So in order to help your country or your city thrive, you need to look at what are the needs of the citizen at the moment, not just now, but you also have to future-proof your city. So for instance, in the city of Cape Town, we have a 2050 plan. So we're looking at what do we need to put in place to make the city resilient to what the influx or the in-migration, the population growth rate, transport needs, public transport needs. We're struggling with huge congestion in the city of Cape Town at the moment. And then obviously energy and water and those things that is necessary for the economy to grow and for communities to thrive. So your infrastructure will be your one arm or your lever that you will spend a lot of money on as a government, because infrastructure is a catalyst for economic growth. So we want to be investing in a lot of infrastructure as a government. So you'll see huge capital budget spends, and then you'll be looking at, as a province, for instance, your health spend and your education spend. So those will be the three things where you will sort of gear your budget, your biggest proportions of your budget towards, if you really want to make a difference and see growth in communities.
And what do you think is the most important to focus on? I know everything has to happen simultaneously, but it's just like, I was reading one of my old papers about the relationship between your socioeconomic status and health. And it's like, it's all, the one causes the other, and it all is simultaneous. But how can we really make sure that the next generation do have better opportunities? Like,
so one of the measurements,
how do you think of it?
So one of the measurements that we do track, it's called HDI, right? The Human Development Index. And that looks at how happy you are as a person in your life currently. And because it's a composite index, it looks at the things that I've mentioned before. It looks at life expectancy. It looks at levels of education. And it looks at GDP per capita. So how is the wealth distributed within your society or your area? And you really want to see that in the times when the economy is, even in times when the economy is declining, and that could really pull down how happy you are as a person. If you have a government that is investing, a public sector that invests in education and invests in health, you will still have quite a high level of well-being amongst your citizens, even if your economy is declining. If all three of them are growing, your health, your life expectancy is growing, and your education levels growing as a population, and your GDP per capita is growing, then overall that measures people's well-being within society. So they really are the three most critical factors to sustain in order to ensure that in the future you see growth organically or systemically across people's lives. So you want to look at people's health, number one, education, and then whether they have the ability or the opportunity to earn an income or make an income. And those are the three things that you will future-proof, for future generations.
So Nadia, you spoke earlier about the grants that you use to stimulate the economy once you've analyzed and you've chosen what you're prioritizing. What other mechanisms does the government use to stimulate the economy?
So the biggest mechanism the government uses to stimulate the economy is infrastructure spend. So number one, you want to see that all your big infrastructure projects, that you are sourcing your inputs and awarding your contracts to local contractors so that it influences the local economy. And then the other form that you would use is your procurement. You would be strategic about your procurement methods. Even though there's very strict regulations in place around procurement, you would, add laws or policies that made it important for business to be awarded to women-owned businesses, Black women-owned businesses, and youth-owned businesses, because that is a sector of the economy that needs stimulation. And as a government, that's one of the levers you have available, who you give your business to. And, government is one of the biggest spenders in the South African economy. And you would try to see that you award those contracts to specific designated groups of people. What else? The government also has an employment program where it's called the Expanded Public Works Program, where it's able to hire those who have lower level skills that are not able to be employed, per se in the formal economy. And it awards these grants to municipalities in quite large amounts, and they are able to employ people from the local economy to work within the area, clean the streets, do admin tasks, etc. So just to assist with the challenge of high unemployment rate that we currently have, those are the ways that the government stimulates the economy.
And where does a lot of people in South Africa have the idea that there's a lot of corruption in the country, but I have a friend that works in the courts in Joburg who he works in corruption. But I was watching some of his podcast interviews where he says, South Africa actually isn't one of the highest ranking countries for corruption. So where do you see, how do you see South Africa in terms of corruption on, once people get their grants or even within the government spending? What's your perspective?
So you will find in spaces where there aren't really strong governance structures in place, where there's a high turnover of political figures like mayors and etc., councillors, or high turnover of the key accounting officers within municipalities, such as the municipal manager, the CFO, those type of people. If they are leaving and being replaced quickly, there's a higher chance that the corruption within those spaces will be more, because they aren't, the checks and balances aren't in place, or the accountability structures aren't strong enough to see that there's no corruption in that space. So I don't know. I don't want to give an opinion on where the corruption's more or less or anything like that. From my experience, I've seen that corruption can exist in any level of government. But you really need to have a strong leader in place. You need to have people in place for a long enough amount of time without them being kicked out or ousted or replaced. And it can really happen from a lot of corruption happens within the procurement space. So that is a very controversial or strategic space within the government to have stronger control measures in place compared to other spaces, because money gets siphoned off contracts, and contracts get awarded so easily. And it can be small bits, it can be big amounts, but procurement is an easy target for corruption within the government space.
And it's so, I think, easy for that line to be crossed in that context. But even if you look at America now, what they're unraveling there with the fraud, I mean, you don't think America's like every country has corruption, but you don't think of it like that. And now you see what's coming up with Elon Musk, and that's very interesting what they're unraveling. But I mean, what else can you do to avoid situations like that, where you know that the money is really going to help those who need it?
Well, I mean, you have mechanisms in place in South Africa, right? Where, for instance, every municipality, every city, every government gets audited every year, and it is your intention as a government to get a clean audit from the Auditor General, because a clean audit means that mostly your money is being spent while you have correct governance structures in place. You're not having high levels of fruitless and wasteful expenditure, irregular expenditure, all those kind of things, right? So that is one of the ways that South Africa has created to be able to keep the governments in check. And clean audits speak to business confidence, it speaks to investors, it speaks to tourists, it speaks to your economy. So even though it's a regulatory measure and it's a legal measure to check your status as a municipality, it affects so many other things. To have a clean audit speaks to good governance and a good government. And if you have a clean audit, also means that as a government, you are delivering your services as you intended. So if service delivery works and your governance and accountability structures work, then you will most likely be running a very good government within your city or municipality.
And what do you think is the biggest threat to our economy at the moment? I mean, the discussion in Europe seems to be a lot around fear of of invasion, or like they have a shortage of weapons? And what is South Africa's biggest concern?
So South Africa has a lot of concerns, but structurally, in our biggest threats to our economy are our own causes, right? So yes, we have the fear of cyber hacking is a fear. It does cause a lot of problems. We have natural disasters, climate change that's becoming more, and we're having big incidents more and more often compared to previous years. We have aging infrastructure as a country. That's why we have the rolling blackouts, because of infrastructure that's not being maintained. And you can't run an economy without electricity, without energy. We have high levels of unemployment, especially amongst the youth. So that means there's not enough jobs within the formal economy to absorb all the labor and those who want to participate within the labor force of working age that are able to participate in the economy. What else? I spoke about inequality before. We still have very high levels of poverty, and that's also causing a drain on government resources. I don't want to say a drain, but it's taken a section of resources like that you can't invest elsewhere, because you really need to look after those that cannot even afford whatever the poverty line is, 650 Rand a month to buy food. So there are a lot of internal issues that as South Africa we are still busy dealing with. We're only 30 years into a democracy, so still a very, very young country where everybody, still is not afforded or has the same opportunities because of generational injustices of the past. It's not going to right itself over 30 years. And then if we could also, like we spoke about corruption, get our corruption under control in certain levels of government, then we will see the economy run so much better. We've also been cut off from foreign aid by the US aid funding that we used to get. It has been stopped. But it's not to say that we don't have enough money in our country to, support our own health targets and outcomes that we are trying to achieve. It's because the money is not being used correctly. So a lot of people are of the opinion, fine, take the money. It forces us to make sure that we look after our own first and see to it that, the money is spent as it was intended. And then I think if we can get that right, then it will resolve a lot of other issues within our country as well.
And what role does education play in changing one's socioeconomic status in South Africa? Because I saw so many bright minds in Nelson Mandela University. I did my honors there. And just in the language field, that's kind of a difficult field to get a job in Africa. So a lot of people either work for the universities or find language jobs abroad, or find other interesting jobs now. I think there is some investment in developing like materials for the African languages. So, but how much of a difference does education really make? Like, is it worth it for someone to really get their master's or PhD in South Africa? Because what does it mean? I also have friends or people I know that have PhDs that are unemployed, So what difference does it really make in the South African economy?
Look, the economy works in a cycle, right? You're always going to need new, fresh minds to enter into the economy. So education, definitely, 100% stand behind the fact that it gives you a step up or a leg up compared to someone else who doesn't have an education. So if you find in certain areas in South Africa, there are lots of low-level skills and not, it's not a very advanced skill society. And where can you work with low-level skills? In agriculture, in services, labor, like low-level labor jobs. So if you want to transform society, you need everybody to be educated, everybody to be able to get a job, and everybody to become at least middle class, with the same levels of education. So I do think that We are struggling with absorbing the labor, especially those coming out of universities. We're not able to absorb them fast enough. We need more jobs for educated professionals. But the world has become such a global economy at the moment. You're able to work remotely, you're able to work online. So if you have certain skills and certain resources that you are able to use as a young person, you are able to make an income.
That is true. And yeah,
consistent about it. You don't have to work in a company physically to be able to earn money with technology. And
there's also a lot of there's a lot of digital nomads, like foreigners, that are attracted to Cape Town. I mean, when I visited last year, even was it last year or the year before? Again, like you see, it transforms every time you go back. It's a totally different place. But one thing I noticed was there's a lot of foreigners coming to live there just because they're attracted to the beauty of it. Have you seen that change, that shift, where there's a lot of like foreign investment, but from individual?
No, we haven't. We're still seeing Cape Town being quite a big semi-migration hotspot, right? We're not just foreigners, but we're seeing a lot of people moving from Johannesburg and other cities in South Africa to Cape Town to work remotely or to be digital nomads. The challenge that we are finding for Cape Town is the influx of digital nomads is really pushing up property prices, especially the rental prices. So you're sort of crowding out the rest of the residents of Cape Town to be able to afford to live in certain areas, because if you are earning pounds or dollars or euros, it is easier, to pay the type of rentals that the market can ask or the landlords can ask for the spaces that are available. So South Africa also has a huge housing crisis, not just for mainly for low-income housing, but also for affordable housing. And affordable, we're talking about your nurses, your policemen, your teachers, that entry-level housing for those to be able to afford property in Cape Town. It's almost becoming impossible to afford property in Cape Town. And the onset of digital nomads and remote working hasn't made that any easier.
Yeah, I mean, I just figured in my mind why I left the country at a young age was I was like, there is no way that I'm going to like live well in this economy if I stay at that age. And also there's a limited amount of companies and types of work that you can do. But you went back. It's really interesting that you got that high level education, then came back, and then obviously you had so much to contribute. But then you also launched a business, and I would love to hear about that, why you launched this business. So please share what inspired us.
So I launched a business basically on Instagram called Curls and Coffee. And what it is, it's a craft teaching business. So I really became passionate about crafts during COVID, during the lockdown. I taught myself a whole bunch of crafts. I think maybe just to keep my hands and my mind busy. But then what evolved out of that organically, it became like a side hustle for me where I would teach workshops on the weekends. I started off at my house, but I teach it mainly from a space in Plumstead. Now I've collaborated with a coffee shop, and I also do team building, corporate events. So a lot of my income comes from big groups of corporates. And so it's evolved itself into quite a successful side business. But my intention with it is that I've seen women that I've taught these crafts. It can be for women or men or children, but mainly women that I've taught these craft skills to start their own businesses. And now I'm seeing them run successful small businesses themselves, where they have their products in stores and online, and you can find their products. And this came from not knowing a skill at all. For instance, something like how to crochet. And now crochet products are very popular and in demand at the moment, especially crochet toys like baby rattles or little teddy bears and plushies that you see online, and people have started making businesses out of that. And it's really been so special for me because this just started as a hobby, and now I teach people this on a regular basis. And my intention going forward is that I would like there to be a social arm of the hobby, of the business, once again, where I'm able to teach women that have been victims of gender-based violence and find themselves in safe houses and have had to leave, gangster partners or pimps or been taken off the streets and really have no way to earn an income. And so my next project is going to be working with these women or youth within the safe houses and teaching them the skills, and then partnering with another person who will then take them through the small business development side of it, how to manage a business, the entrepreneurial skills, etc., so that they can actually make a success. Even they go to craft markets, or I've seen a lady, I was walking on the promenade on Saturday and it was 7 o'clock in the morning and she was putting out a blanket with all the little crocheted toys and people were buying it. So you don't really need to, you just need to have the product and a space to sell the product, and you can make at least a day's, week's living for yourself and look after yourself and your family. So that's my goal for the next year.
And in the South African context, I think it actually is super wise to do those types of small businesses because it's actually quite lucrative as opposed to even a job. I've sold many things. I sold coats and at the markets and men, everything you could imagine, jewelry. But yeah, I tried everything when I was a student. And it's really lucrative because people like going to markets and they like
100% huge market culture. Yesterday, I went to a vegan market close by with some friends that are visiting, and they're vegans and they wanted to. And we just went to a market and it just had a whole bunch, everything all the food at the market was vegan, and they had a thrift element, people had stores where you were thrifting. So it was huge fun to do on a Saturday and Sunday. Cape Town has a huge market culture. So for me, yeah, definitely it's a space to be in.
And I mean, I had tried selling stuff online in those days. I remember I tried everything. I was like, I'm going to go to the markets there by the taxi ranks. And I just went and everything was sold out in 4 hours. I was like, whoa, this is crazy. And it's kind of fun as well because then you get to interact with all the people. People are quite open. Okay, so Nadia, then what do you feel would your future look like in South Africa? What would be next for you?
So I see myself staying in my current work maybe 3, 4, 5 years and then moving on. So I'm not really a maintainer of spaces. I'm more of an innovator. So once I've come into a space, added value to what I could add value to, innovated the products, taken it to the next level, then I'm done for that time being. It's someone else's job to take over. So, I have a bit of a succession plan in place. Who's going to be next? They need to take over and I need to move on and live and work within my purpose to whatever's next. So I don't know what it'll be yet, but I know it'll be something new and challenging and different next. My dream is to own a space that's a coffee shop, but it also sells yarn and books and craft supplies, and it has a studio space where I run the workshops from, and people come chill, read, crochet, paint, do whatever they want to do. And plants. It has to have plants as well because I'm hugely into plants. And that's my dream. So I don't know, maybe in the next 5 to 10 years, that as well be out of the economic space and more into the creative space.
And what do you think if you had stayed in the US? What would you have been doing now? What would you
be working really, really hard? People in the US work really hard. We always say in Cape Town, we work to live. We don't live to work, and it's so important with all the mental health issues and the burnouts that I'm seeing, around me, people. It's so important to really make sure that you balance your life, so that you work, but that you also give yourself time to rest and play and enjoy your family. Life can't all be about work. You have to also have a good quality of life and live. So I know I have friends in the US and they work really, really hard. And I just don't know that I was built for that culture. So maybe that's why I also left. Yeah.
We're a very social culture. Sometimes I'm like, anyone work in Cape Town? But once you get in the social circle, then it's just invites to many events, and like there's no way out.
Exactly. So that's what I see myself doing, not working 12, 60-hour weeks, 12-hour days. Not my idea of fun. So no.
And what would you say to younger women who might be interested in studying economics? Like, who do you think it would be a good thing for?
Yeah. No, I think it's a good thing for any young woman. And I would say that there are opportunities out there, more and more so, for young women. So I always try and encourage and mentor young women in this space, especially my interns that I work with. I really try to set them up that they are pushed to be able to, progress their career. And I think that the one thing I would say is don't give up on like your dreams of what you want to study and what you want to be. You have so much potential, and that there's so much money out there to study. I think people don't realize, people think that not having the finances to support yourself at university or pay your fees is, a blockage or a challenge to studying. If you are bright and if you're willing to work hard, there is money to study. I was on a Ford Foundation scholarship to Duke. I would never have been able to afford that, ever in my whole life. The money's out there. You need to put in the effort. You need to look for it, apply yourself. And trust me, it will be paid for. So I think they should just go for it.
Yeah, definitely. And it's amazing what people do by themselves. I have so many friends that got scholarships. I think that also plays a big role in people leveling up in their careers, right? Have you seen with your friends?
Sure.
Have you got any friends that have had a similar route to you that have also?
Not that I know of personally, but I've met.
Look up to you. I mean,
I've met people that have taken a similar route in Cape Town and are doing amazing things. And then obviously I know a lot of people across the world that are doing amazing work now because of the scholarship.
Yeah, it's amazing. I still want to finish my economics. So you are.
Do it. You do it.
I know. I'm going to come visit your offices next time I'm in Cape Town. I want to see what you guys get.
Absolutely. You should come.
Thank you so much, Nadia, for sharing your experience with us. It is so interesting what you're doing there. And I think anyone, like, if they want to come to Cape Town, what's the first thing they should do?
Hike up Lion's Head.
Lion's Head, number one. But there's so much here that we have to offer in Cape Town.
You could never be bored here. There's so much to see, do, and eat.
Yeah.
So you'll have so much fun.
Thank you so much, Nadia, for coming on the show, on the Mum Africa show. You are also a mama in Africa. So, yes, just such an amazing example. Thank you for coming.
You're welcome. And thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Mm-hmm.